You feed your baby a spoonful of honey. It's sweet, it's natural, it's from the earth. What could possibly go wrong? A few hours later, the baby stops crying. Not because he's calm, because he can't. His muscles are going slack one by one. He can't suck. He can't lift his head. He's suffocating from the inside, and nobody in that room has any idea why. This isn't ancient fiction. This still happens today in babies under 1 year old. From something as simple as a spoonful of honey. And the wild part? Ancient people didn't have microscopes, didn't have germ theory, didn't even have a word for bacteria, and some of them figured out this danger anyway, purely by watching and burying too many children to ignore the pattern. Today we're going deep into one of the strangest medical mysteries in human history, how people figured out, without any science at all, that one of nature's sweetest foods could quietly kill an infant. Because here's the thing, honey isn't poisonous. Adults eat it every day, completely safe. So how do you even begin to notice that it's fine for you, but fatal for a baby? That takes an insane amount of pattern recognition. And it took thousands of years, a whole lot of grief, and one very persistent bacteria to get there. Here's what's actually happening, in modern terms first. So, the mystery makes sense. Honey can sometimes contain dormant spores of a bacteria called Clostridium botulinum. These spores come from soil, dust, pollen. They're basically everywhere in nature, and bees pick them up without meaning to. In adults, this is a total non-issue. Our gut is fully developed, full of competing bacteria that just crowd the spores out before they can do anything. But a baby's gut, especially under 1 year old, doesn't have that defense system built yet. So in an infant, those spores can actually wake up, grow, and start producing a toxin, one of the most potent toxins known to science. It attacks the nervous system and causes slow, creeping paralysis. Doctors today call it infant botulism. Now imagine trying to figure that out with zero microscopes and zero concept of bacteria at all. Ancient caregivers couldn't see spores, they couldn't see toxins, all they had was outcome. A baby who seemed perfectly healthy would be given a small taste of honey, used across many ancient cultures as a soother, a treat, sometimes even rubbed on gums to ease teething pain. And every so often, entirely without warning, that baby would go quiet, stop feeding, grow weak, sometimes not survive. Here's the part that made this so hard to figure out. It didn't happen every time. Most babies who got a little honey were completely fine. That inconsistency is exactly what makes a pattern nearly invisible. If something killed every single time, you'd link cause and effect almost instantly. But when it's rare and unpredictable, it takes generations of careful, painful observation to even suspect a connection. Historians and folklorists have long noted that across multiple ancient and traditional societies, there existed an unusually consistent caution. Honey was often withheld from the very youngest infants, particularly in the first months of life, even in cultures that otherwise prized honey as medicine for everyone else. That's a strange, specific exception. And exceptions like that don't appear in oral tradition by accident. They appear because someone, somewhere, buried a child and decided never to let that happen again. This is where oral tradition becomes genuinely powerful. In a world without written medical records, the way you preserved a dangerous lesson was to turn it into a rule, sometimes even a taboo, wrapped in ritual or superstition. Because a rule people feel obligated to follow spreads faster and survives longer than a vague warning. Don't give the newborn honey until it can walk wasn't science. It wasn't even explained, but it worked. It encoded a real observed risk into a piece of cultural instinct that got repeated for generations, long after anyone remembered exactly why. And this pattern isn't unique to honey. Ancient people did this constantly, turning hard-won, painful observations into food taboos, into rituals, into just don't do that rules that outlived the reasoning behind them. Modern science has gone back and found actual chemical or biological logic behind a surprising number of these old taboos. Honey and infants may be one of the clearest examples we have. Fast forward to 1976. Doctors in California formally identified infant botulism as its own medical condition for the first time, and honey was eventually confirmed as one of its known sources. Today, the guidance is simple and universal. No honey for babies under 12 months, full stop. Not because honey is dangerous in general, it's genuinely one of the safest foods that exist for the rest of us, but because one very specific, very young, very underdeveloped digestive system can't yet defend itself against it. And here's the thing that should genuinely give you chills. Modern pediatric guidance, built on lab-confirmed toxicology, landed in almost exactly the same place that scattered, unscientific oral traditions had already arrived at, independently, in multiple cultures, thousands of years earlier. They didn't know what a spore was. They didn't know what a toxin was. They just knew. Sometimes this kills babies, so we don't do it. That's honestly one of the wildest examples of ancient pattern recognition I've come across. No germ theory, no lab equipment, just careful, repeated observation, and the willingness to trust a pattern even when you can't explain it. It's a good reminder that a lot of what we now call science started out as someone, somewhere, paying very close attention and refusing to ignore what they saw. If this one surprised you, let me know in the comments. And if you know a taboo or old rule from your own family or culture that turned out to have real logic behind it, drop it below. I might make a whole video out of the best ones. Subscribe for more of these. Next time, we're going even further back to figure out how ancient people first realized what foods were actually safe to eat at all. See you in the next one.